Uh, Okay, hello, and welcome to Spamantha Sundays. Spamantha Sundays, if you never heard of it, is a radio show every Sunday from 4 till 6 at the Vessel 11 boat in Rotterdam, where usually me, Spamantha, have a guest over and we talk for an hour, usually about like political, cultural, world ideas, problems, whatever. Right now focused on diaspora, home, Eastern European stuff and all that, what is really interesting to me. And for 1 hour my guests will be playing some hot tunes that they chose. So yes, today we have a very special guest. Today our guest is Sarah. Sarah, do you want to tell us something about yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me. What do I say? What I do in life is I studied art history. I'm an art historian, and I'm interested in contemporary art. And I work for several exhibition spaces. I do communications there. I used to be very much into the whole theoretical institutional part. Like I was schooled in university, and I was very busy with identity. I think that's also where we kind of find each other. We met through mutual friends, a friend a lot of years ago, actually, like 4 years. Whoa, you knew that, you had the answer ready. But this meeting was super brief, like we never stayed in touch or anything. And then I think a year ago we were messaging and we were like, hey, let's have some dinner together or whatever. So I went to your house and we had a really nice dinner and we had a really nice conversation, and we found out that I think our interests or our field of interest really overlapped. So yeah, I was actually curious also to hear why you invited me here. I think it's because of your interest in diaspora. And you also work in that field with the whole, Spamantha, she's from there. But yeah, so okay, I kind of answered the question I just asked you, right? Or do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, like basically, I really, of course, yeah, exactly. Like we have topics that are really connecting to us. That is connecting us. But also, yeah, because we briefly talked about several times about your family and, as you said, diaspora and like, and I found it really interesting that your dad comes from a really cool country. Cool, I think it's cool. So I guess that's very subjective. But yes, I was just really curious to find out more about exactly how your family is with the connection of exactly like diaspora, as you said, and how you see culture, identity, art here, maybe to connection to the Eastern Bloc and all that. So like a mix of things.
Okay. Yeah. So so the first time when you invited me, because I knew about this radio show, and I knew that the main theme kind of was really also based on diaspora subjects or anything around identity and cultural heritage. And I noticed the first thing is that so I'm Dutch in a way. It's really difficult. I'm Dutch. I was born in Holland, and my mom is Dutch, but my dad isn't. And my brother and my sister were also born in another country than I was. So my mom and me are really the only kaaskoppen. And so really in my upbringing, I haven't really had a typical Dutch upbringing. I guess you would say, or yeah, in a way also yes, like practically speaking. But yeah, so when you invited me, I really felt like I'm not really a representative for any diaspora. Like, 'cause I'm also Jewish, which is a very complicated thing on its own. Like, this is not necessarily, I'm not from Israel, but I'm also not like typical. I don't know what a typical Jew even is. Yeah, I do know, but also not like, it's really complicated. And my dad, yeah, like you said, or you didn't say it, he's from Uzbekistan, which used to be, Soviet Union. So I guess he's kind of a Russian person. And so yeah, I really felt like, what diaspora can I speak about? Because I'm also really Dutch. You know, I was born here, I was raised here, and I've always had Dutch friends when I was younger. Like, we never lived in a Jewish community or anything. So yeah, I really felt like, I don't feel like I can speak of any of these diasporas representatively. And I mean, we could talk about the term representative, because maybe not one person can be a representative for anything. But yeah, so I this made me think a lot about what is home, because I also in my life lately I've been thinking about that a lot, because I often experience things that I notice some type of culture clash in a way. For example, I'm really super open in expressing my emotions. Any place, anytime, like in the train, I can cry, I can be on the phone, like having a fight and crying, and people don't like it, like people around me don't like it. I once had an experience where this was happening, like I was breaking up with my boyfriend or something, and I was on the phone in the train, so I was having a really emotional talk, I was crying, and the lady beside me, she said like, can't you be a little bit less loud? Can't you like have this talk somewhere else? And on one hand I understand, but on the other it got me really pissy. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's this culture clash in the sense that in general, like this is all really generally speaking, of course. There's how do you say? There's exceptions, but in general, I feel like there's less space amongst the Dutch people to express yourself or express negative feelings. I don't know, but yeah. So that's kind of my starting point. I started to think about what does make the sense of home, or like what is home then. Yeah. I collected some snippets of conversations that I had, or conversations, that to me I think give a good representation of what home can be also, because I think it comes, the sense of home comes in a lot of forms and shapes, or it can come in a lot of forms and shapes. So I would like to read a bit, and maybe we can just talk about that afterwards. Yeah. Oh yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so just to make it clear, because I kind of know what I don't know what you're gonna read, but like you were telling me about this, so I kind of have an idea. But so what is it going to be? Not exactly, but it's like, so it's conversations that you recorded, right?
Yeah. Partly. The first thing that I want to read is a conversation actually between my sister and my uncle, and this uncle is the brother of my father, and she recorded it. This conversation happened like a year or two ago, and she transcribed it, so we have it in text. And my sister basically asked my uncle for the family history, because he's a little bit older than my dad, and so he kind of explained to her the whole family history like where the parents of my grandparents come from and their whole path, and eventually how my grandparents got to meet. And this story, the story takes place in around the 1930s, 1940s, so it's Second World War times. I took some pieces of that because I think this is maybe a good start of the conversation, because it's also the start, or at least as far as I can go, of me and my sense of home. Maybe, I mean, I think so. I like to believe that everything that I am, it comes from somewhere, and this, you can go very deep down the genes and the family psyche in that sense. So does that answer your question? Okay. So this was a conversation between my sister and my uncle, and this is told, so this is how my uncle told the story. Her full name was Manya Inger. She was the single daughter of my grandmother Zizel and my grandfather Shmuel. My grandfather had not so big business, let's say like a motel. Not a hotel high-end like Marriott. It's a motel, but was business. They lived in a town close, not so far from Odessa. This is a town on the Black Sea, if you know geography, south of Ukraine. My mom was born in this place. The whole family from this side, from grandmother Zizel and grandfather Shmuel, lived there. Children, cousins, all the generations. My grandfather had 4 sisters and 2 brothers. When it started to be a very difficult situation in Ukraine in the 30s, my grandfather understood they were going to kill the Jewish people and send the middle class people to Siberia. This was a very bad period of Russian history. It was not Russia actually, it was the Soviet Union. And so Shmuel made the decision to save his family. They went to check options in Central Russia, in Tashkent. They heard it was a normal place. Muslim people from Uzbekistan, they were not anti-Semitic, and it's far from Russia, so it's not influenced by Russian Bolshevik propaganda. They decide to go to Tashkent and see what it is. They had never been, but they feel that it's going to be safe for their family. They checked the place in Tashkent, and after they took the whole family. One of my grandfather's sisters was killed by the Germans. The rest immigrated from Ukraine to Uzbekistan. My mom was at that time just 10 or 11 years old. The generation before my grandfather were from a place that in Yiddish is called a shtetl. It's not a big town. It's much like country, farms. Because of the anti-Semitic politics of Russia, Jewish people could not easily live in big cities like Moscow or St. Petersburg, and because options were very limited. Now, my father was born in Ukraine, which was at the time East Poland. He lived in a Jewish town. Only 2-3 days before Germans attacked the Russians and occupied Ukraine, my father, at that time a student at the university, was sent to East Russia with all the important books to save them. Afterwards, my father came to Uzbekistan. During his travels, he heard on the radio that the Germans occupied his hometown, and he understood it was going to be a very tragic story. His whole family had been murdered. This happened in 1939. In Uzbekistan, my father found a job and did hard physical work during the day, something with a bean factory, and he studied by night. After hearing about what happened to his family, he wanted to fight the Germans in the Red Army. In 1944, the Russian army needed new soldiers, and they noticed my father knows languages: Polish, Yiddish, Hebrew, Uzbeki, perfect German, perfect English, and his Russian was really good too. And they understood he's not supposed to be a regular soldier. They took him to intelligence services to do the translation work from German to Russian, approaching the Germans with his fluent German, making them believe he's a German officer, finding good high-up officers because they know more than soldiers, trying to get secret information from them, and sometimes even kidnapping them to bring them over to the Russian side. My father stayed in the army for 2 years. He was 23 or 24 years old at that time. After the army, he finished university, started teaching German and English language in Tashkent University. He met a Jewish lawyer called Tanya Kelmont, and she knew that she had to bring him to a house, a Jewish house, so he would know some Jewish people there in Tashkent. And that's how my grandmother and my grandfather met. And I thought this was really nice, at least for me, because it really showed me. I also thought about my youth and how I grew up, and I always had the idea that we would never stay together in Holland. I have one brother, one sister, and my parents. And when it happened, because my brother doesn't live in Holland and my father also left, so I'm here with my sister and my mom, it never was really a shock to me. And when I heard about this story, basically it's a lot of people traveling around because they were forced to do so, or because it just happened. And I don't know. I just really started thinking, whoa, it's for me it's so natural in a way. Like I realized from the day I was born that we wouldn't always stay together. So I started thinking that maybe this lack of home is the sense of home now for me, like in my family psyche, or like the blood that I have in me. Yeah. So that's how I think that was like a good starting point to talk about maybe.
Definitely. Yes. Well, saying that the lack of home makes a sense of home, I totally agree with that, actually. And I also found this paragraph that is talking about that from this really interesting book I got borrowed from a friend of mine, but I was thinking maybe I can read it at the end. But what I found very interesting that you said, also connected to that, the lack of home, do you think that's also a bit connected with, I'm really not an expert, so I don't want to say anything too wrong, but like, do you think that's also connected to Judaism as a religion, that like kind of that Jews are always supposed to move, kind of in the sense of the Old Testament? Do you think that's also connected?
Yeah, I think it is. I have to say, I'm also not. I haven't studied the Testament, and so in that sense, I can't really tell. But as far as I know, like I know the summaries of the history. Throughout history, Jews have been forced to leave their homes, and it's still a difficult situation, which we could have a whole other talk about. Of course, I don't know if this is the time for that, but I do think that it's in there, moving around constantly. Also, maybe I think this is like a starting point for me, where I start looking for the sense of home in different things that I do have around me. And also because, like a very, very concrete example is my dad. He lives far away from me. He lives in Canada at the moment. And I really miss him, of course. And so I try to I notice that I feel very comfortable. I feel comfort coming from the objects that I have in my house that remind me of him or that are his. But also my cooking is really based on a lot of the recipes that my dad made when we did live close together. Those things are really comforting. So but I do think that in that sense it can be in the genes. But for you, because do you also feel that, like, this lack of home is the sense of home, or like how is that for you? Because, or maybe you also have Jewish roots, I don't know. You tell me. But how is that, like, how do you relate to it?
So if we talk about religion, I don't have any Jewish roots. I like my grandma grew up Catholic, and I think okay. So from my grandpa's side, they're quite like oh God, brain fart. When you don't believe in anything, it's atheist. Yeah, atheist. Because my grandpa was very much communist, like very communist. So like he was kind of like against God, so to say, not even neutral. But yeah, and then from my other side, from like Bosnia, they're quite like Orthodox, but also nobody was really like super religious actually, in that sense. But coming back to the lack.
So, but I think it has to do more with the culture, right? Because there has been a history of war where you're from. So maybe that also explains certain movements in people. Do you relate to that, or do you think that is in your genes in a way?
Well, yeah. So movement. Yeah, I think it's more connected to the political economic side of it. So I don't. I mean, there has been movements through history, of course. Like, I mean, it's just natural, right? Of people, but I think in my personal case, and also of course, for example, in the case of my parents, who, for example, they met in Germany, and my mom is from Serbia. Well, it's all a mix, but let's say she grew up in Serbia, and my dad grew up in Bosnia. So they met in Germany, which is like random, but basically they were both working there. And then, so they were working there because they were, so to say, in German, they call them Gastarbeiters, Gastarbeiter. So like guest workers. You also have a word in... Gastarbeiters. Yeah. Exactly. That one. So that's how they met, and they, for example, emigrated because because of the economic political situation, because there was civil war happening in Yugoslavia. Back then it was called Yugoslavia. So yeah, that's very much politically related. I don't really think that any of them would do it if the situation would have been nicer, so to say. And then in my case, I guess it's kind of like the same. Well, it's similar because it's not like I just, because of them, I moved around during my childhood. So I lived 8 years on and off in Germany, and then in Serbia, and then I decided to go to Estonia, and then I decided to come here. So it's kind of like at some point, at the beginning when I was a child, it was their decision because they just moved me around because I was a child, so I didn't really have my own opinion, or I couldn't really make my own opinion. But then when I was old enough, I made my own choices to do the same kind of, which is weird, but at the same time, I don't know, it just became so normal, like that I don't really see myself, or like, it's not that I don't see myself, but like I'm really having difficulties to be like, okay, this is like my place, or this is it, like at least geographically, or being like, oh yeah, this is where I'm gonna spend the rest of my life, or something like that. Like a lot of people have that, they like buy houses and shit like that, they really like root themselves somewhere, exactly, settle, as you say. But like, I don't know, I don't really have that. So
Well, then you do what you've learned. So that's kind of like familiar. I think there's also like synonyms synonyms. There's synonyms for the I think for the sense of home, and it has a lot to do with familiarity, I think, and recognition, because what we often refer to when we think about home is the place that you know, and the place where you can really be yourself and really let your guard down. and this is the place that we grew up in. For a lot of people, this is also a really fucked up place. Can I cuss?
Of course.
It's really a fucked up place, which is very sad. So this familiarity you can also find in behavioral patterns, I think. So you moving around after your parents don't have anything to say about that anymore, but you're still choosing to do that. It has to do with that behavioral pattern that you know, and you grew up in that. It's familiar to you. This is the way you like carry yourself through life. But what I was also thinking about the difference is I've been raised in one place my whole life. Like I was raised in Holland. I was born here. I still live here. Haven't yet traveled for a long time, which I still want to do, but difficult situation right now. How can I still? I was born here, I was raised here, lived here my whole life. How can I still sometimes not feel at home at all? Because I really do have certain clashes, I feel like. And of course, I'm also a young person, so just trying to figure out where I belong. I feel like I know, but I don't know if it's here. But also, I realized that if I go somewhere else, because I really notice with like my Russian family, for example, when I visit them, I really feel super Dutch. But when I'm with only Dutch people, I really feel not Dutch. Like I really feel something else. So where do I belong? This is also the question that it really popped up when I started thinking about after you invited me to come here. So I think where do I belong, or like where what gives me the comfort of home. I can find it in different things, in different people, also in different ways. But yeah.
I think that what you just said, I think a lot of young people have it, especially because, especially nowadays, there is a lot of young people who, have parents from different backgrounds. So let's say, I don't know, are from different origins, so to say, and then they have a kid, and that kid takes kind of the identity of both parents, but like neither or, but then also at the same time both, and then it's I think there's a lot of confusion, and also because we live in such like a globalized world that it's kind of like normal to be born somewhere and then grow up somewhere and then and speak like 2-3 languages, 4 languages. So that's really cool, but exactly, like a lot of young people have the same questions and about identity and belonging, but something that I think is really our strength, so to say, is that I think we can really adapt to different situations. So as you said, you don't feel 100% with Dutch friends, but also not 100% with Russian friends, but like I think there is some kind of like power in that, to just like being like fluctuating between, and also like nowhere 100%, but then percent, so like everywhere a little bit, and it kind of like also takes me, it really connects to this like really funny moment where I was in Bosnia this summer, and I was spending a lot of time with my family there. And I spent a lot of time with my aunt, who I didn't see for like I think like good 9-10 years. And so they were taking me in this like rural part. I mean, they live in this rural part of Bosnia, and they were like taking me to this like cafe, and they was like taking me to the field because they have a lot of like tomato fields. And then they would take me to the mountain, and they take me all places. And wherever I was like, oh my god, this is so cool! This is so cool! I was happy anywhere, but like I really was. I was not faking it. And she was like, oh my god, you like it everywhere. And then I was like a bit like, what? You know, like that's not true. But then it's like, it is, because you just assimilate wherever you are, and I think that's just the power that we have, that you don't have one place, you have everywhere. So actually, I really want to read this paragraph because I think it perfectly fits our topic that we just scratched on. And then when I read it, we can talk about that. Okay, cool. So this is from a book. It is called Space and Place, Theories of Identity and Location. And it's edited by Erica Carter, James Donald, and Judith Squires. And there is one section of it, or like an essay, I guess, that it's called No Place Like Heimat. So here we go. There can be no recovery of an authentic cultural homeland in a world that is increasingly characterized by exile, migration, and diaspora, with all the consequences of unsettling and hybridization. There can be no place for such absolutism of the pure and authentic. In this world, there is no longer any place like Heimat. More significant for European cultures and identities now is the experience of displacement and transition. Sometimes we feel that we straddle two cultures, writes Salman Rushdie of his own experience. At other times we fall between two stools. What is most important is to live and work with this disjuncture, what Paul Willeman calls this in-between position. Identity must live out of this tension. Our feet must learn to walk on both banks of the river at the same time.
I like that really visual description at the end, like with the legs split, and you hope the riverbank doesn't get wider and wider because it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. Yeah, you need to learn to live with it. But I think also I like that you put a positive note on it, because I also wanted to go there, because I think that the sense of home that I'm missing, I can find it everywhere. Like you said, like there's a little part of you in a lot of different things, and I think even beyond culture, I think as a human being, we can really find a part of ourselves in everyone and everything. And I think, for example, protests are a good example of this, because, I mean, there's been a lot of protests lately, or like throughout history in general, and there's a lot of different people in a crowd like that, and they all share that one ideal that they're standing there for, but it's a lot of different people in a crowd. You won't be agreeing with the person next to you in a protest on every aspect, on every political, social aspect or opinion, but you're still standing next to them and sharing that ideal in that moment. I think it's really beautiful that you can find a piece of yourself in any other person, as long as you're open to hearing the other one, I think. Do you have anything to say?
Yes, I agree, Sarah. Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, I have something to add on that, because I was talking to my mom about this. We have really long phone calls, and she told me about a conversation that she had with my brother.
Where's your brother?
My brother, he lives on Ibiza, so I think they call a lot. So I'll read it, because my mom wrote it down for me. So it goes: a conversation I had with your brother. in which I told him about some daily irritations at work. A colleague of mine seems to express experiencing physical pains, coughing, and having trouble walking only whenever someone is around. My translation of this pattern of behavior is that she is hungry for attention, and because of this, I tend to ignore her. My brother, however, told me this: "You are her, and she is you. Give her that smile, give her that attention, she'll be happy, and it won't cost you a thing. It will only cost you the decision not to be irritated." After the conversation, I realized the reason it irritated me was the fact that I recognized my colleague's behavioral pattern as a negative pattern that personally I would never want to adapt. But the fact that I recognized it and read it tells me that it also lives inside of me. I merely took another path when it comes to how I express myself in social surroundings. Yeah.
Do you want
Wow. You should call my mom maybe once. Maybe you should come for dinner. She really likes to meet my friends.
here?
Oké, mama, je bent uitgenodigd volgende keer. Anyway, yeah, I really liked this and because yeah, it really shows that yeah, why do you get irritated? Like, irritation is also an acknowledgement of something's existence. Because if you wouldn't acknowledge, if you wouldn't notice that something exists, you wouldn't feel anything. Like, you would be onverschillig, like not caring about it. But irritation is also, yeah, in a way it comes from acknowledgement, and this acknowledgement comes from the fact that you recognize it. It's familiar to you in a way. Maybe this is just a way of thinking. Maybe you have another idea about it. I don't know.
I really liked when your brother said, like, yeah, you are her and she is you, and it just really reminded me, of Buddhism, where like everything's intertwined, and when you have like all the egos are intertwined, there is no ego, etc., etc., etc. But I think that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Is your brother spiritual?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he. I don't have much to say about that. I think he is, yes. Yeah, but also, yeah, my mom also really likes that way of thinking, and it's also in me, and I think also my sister. Like, we're a family, we share the same home. So yeah, I thought that was really nice, and I think that kind of transcends the cultural idea of dealing with things. And it makes it a lot more of a human question, or not even human, maybe even a being question. We can also talk in this sense about plants and animals and anything that lives, or also the things that don't live. It makes it really big, So I thought that was a nice addition to the sense of home also, that as long as you're open to it, and you recognize that it's a part of you, or you can see that it's a part of you, maybe you'll experience home in a lot more ways.
Oh, cool. But I really like the part of like understanding each other. And seeing things from a different perspective. So in the sense of the, in the situation where your mom was in, of kind of not getting annoyed or whatever, like turning something like a negative feeling into a positive feeling. So how do you think, just generally what crossed my mind in that sense was like, how do we not fight against, but kind of like, let's say, deal with like alienation and like the other, and like maybe understanding or misunderstanding and communicating with other cultures and people we maybe like just like don't get exactly, but like, yeah, how do you deal with that? Did you ever have like a cultural shock or something, even with your Russian friends, or just something that like yeah, like you don't understand or they don't understand, and then it's just like a clash. And what do you think about that? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I often feel like there's clashes, but I feel like I don't think I ever let them hold me back in who I am or how I am. I feel like the key here is to stay in conversation. Because also we can transcend cultural. We can transcend the cultural. We can also talk about just someone with a different opinion, or different ideas about life or about how to deal with things. For me, it's really important to really try to understand why someone thinks the way they do, because everything has a certain context of ontstaan. The way everyone has a certain context that they come from. So I really like to try to analyze together, why do you think the way you think? Because the other way around, I also like when people test me in that sense, or testing, or they're interested in that. I feel like a big hurdle in this process is the ego. And maybe also a good example with my mom, like she was irritated, and because I think that's all those type of feelings are really ego things. I mean, of course, it can go a lot better. I feel like I can always kind of put my ego aside in a conversation with someone who thinks differently, and really I'm really interested in how the other, why do you think the way you think? It's not your fault, The only thing you can do is be open-minded and listen to listen to other ideas. It's not someone else's fault that they think differently. It would maybe be a fault in the character if they're closed-minded and they don't want to have that conversation. So I try to have that conversation. Does it answer your question?
Yes, it does in a way. But I was just also a bit curious about it, because what you think, because I was just talking with one of my roommates today, and they were there was we always have like some deep conversations, but like it was more about so for example, I'm just gonna say a situation that she told me. So for example, there apparently she was talking some months ago, with this her friend, who is apparently a really young guy, so like our age, 20 plus, grew up in the capital, whatever, of Croatia, and so yeah, like living a quite okay life, so whatever, just this regular 20 plus dude from capital of Croatia, whatever. So they were talking, and his dad works on like a cruise ship or whatever, a ship, and he was like telling my friend the story that when his dad was working on this cruise ship, there was somebody Muslim who was dealing with the luggage or something like that. And his dad apparently said to the manager that he doesn't want the Muslim person to touch his luggage. So, and then what was the most shocking part for me personally is that then this younger dude, so the son of that captain, whatever, he said, yeah, I totally understand. I totally agree with my dad. So what was shocking me is more like, how can somebody who grew up in the capital, who went to school, so is not from like a, like a deranged, like it's from like had always a house over, has had always education, had internet access, has knowledge, like all those things. You're young, you live in the 21st century, like all these things, and you still think this way. So I'm just like, yeah, what do you think of that? Why do you think that still exists? And of course, he's not the only one who is thinking like that about, different things, cultures, whatever.
I think I would want to start a conversation with this guy. Okay, that's interesting, because it's something that I don't think like that. Why do you think like that? Also, I think we specifically are in a bubble of people that don't think like that. So to us, it can be really shocking if someone thinks differently. But there's a lot of people who have different ways of thinking than we do. So yeah, it doesn't really shock me anymore. I feel like, of course, it's like, whoa, okay, why? Like, to me, it doesn't. There's no logic in it. I mean, the person who carries my luggage, they only earn my respect. I don't. Doesn't really matter how they look, where they come from, the way they think. I really don't care, as long as you carry my luggage. But yeah, I mean, I think the solution to that is not just being shocked and acting radical towards it, like you can't think like that, you should just not exist, or not that extreme. But I think the solution to that is trying to start a conversation, listen to that person, and then hopefully the other way around, they will also listen, and maybe you can learn something from each other. I mean, nothing to lose, right? The situation is bad already, or is that really korter de bocht?
Well, I don't know. Like, I personally am really also like, I don't think there's one solution or whatever. I mean, solution is also a big word. Like, but I was just curious because, like, for example, because of the war and all that happened, I know that a lot of older generations are like, saw a lot of things, are traumatized and are not open and ready to deal with that. So they accumulate a lot of hate, which I think is really also unhealthy, first of all for themselves and then for everybody else. But it's just, what struck me is, yes, that somebody who hasn't been through something traumatic in that sense, and who really has like no reason, so to say, or like, no. Yeah.
But he's the father of his son, so he also carries the trauma.
Yeah.
Trauma's past. So, and he was raised by his father. Yeah, of course he thinks like that. Right? I think it's really not that weird. I mean, of course, yeah, so maybe the point you're trying to make is that in his life he probably has a lot of people, he met a lot of people who think differently than his dad. So yeah. But yeah, really the home base is so strong, I also I meet a lot of different people, or yeah, maybe relatively it's not that different. I mean, you're always in a bubble, but I try to meet a lot of different people, and I try to be open to a lot of different people, so that maybe you can kind of improve the family psyche that you that was given to you, and all the faults and all the shit that is in there. Maybe you can try to improve those things if you stay open to people that think differently and keep testing yourself, or like keep like putting your own way of thinking to the test. And so I think that's really important to not radicalize your own way of thinking, and really stay open to everything. It can be really difficult because it's also there's also something like the feeling and the soul, I think, and so I think it's a balance between those things. I think that's important to find each other, keep trying to find each other, even though the other person is totally opposite from you. But maybe you find out that you thought they were totally opposite from you, like my mom and her colleague, but actually they are you and you are them. I don't know, maybe not. You have nothing to lose in that sense.
Interesting. No, I get your point. Really good point. Okay, so before we go to the music, is there anything else you would like to address, end it off with, question, fact, reading, whatever?
Yeah, maybe I should read my sister's little text because she put effort in it, and otherwise it's a little bit sad otherwise, because I think she had a really nice nice example also of feeling home, and her little story touched me because my sister is also missing my dad, but I thought it was also a nice way of explaining how our sense of home can be experienced. And because I was talking about food and objects, so like food and visuals or sounds. Also, music is for a lot of people a big part of feeling comforted, and it really brings up a lot of association and memories for a lot of people. So we'll get to that point in a few minutes. But my sister, she told me a story that it had to do with finding home in a certain type of touch, in the way she was touched. So I'll read it. Laying on one ear, either one of my ears, a hand repetitively strokes my head right above my ear. A long-lasting, repetitive act of strokes, each 3 to 4 minutes long. Seconds, sorry. Each 3 to 4 seconds long. With it sometimes partially touching my ear, creating different amplifications of the stroking sound of skin touching skin. In that moment, the hand stroking my head belonged to a lover, but it reminded me of my father's. Every time it brings me to a sentimental state of being, a childhood memory, laying on the couch watching telly at night together. When she told me this, she also, I can do she showed me what she meant. It's like kind of like this, and it's really, actually what's funny is that when she did that, I was like, oh, mama, but actually she meant, oh, nee, papa. So they kind of have the same touch maybe in that sense, but yeah, I really recognize that. Especially for me, it's like when we're on the couch and he does like this. He's really physical, like not in a bad way. I had a good childhood, but he does like this, and like not really, but also really long, which it gets annoying at one point. Like the skin starts really tingling. But it reminds, like those touches. Do you have any? Your parents? Maybe difficult if you don't have it around you.
Look, both of my parents are Capricorns, which means they don't show emotion. So no, sorry. But though with my grandma, yes. I don't know, like now that you say it, this instant think of like exactly like human touch was really a thing with my grandma, because I remember when I was a kid, I really enjoyed, okay, this is gonna sound a bit weird, but I really enjoyed her belly, because she had a really soft, fat belly. So it was always like so cuddly, you can just like fall asleep, it's like a pillow. I don't know, this is weird, but yeah, it's all human, I guess.
So nice. I think your grandma's belly is a good way to end this conversation, right? we started in Uzbekistan after Second World War, and it ends with your grandma's belly. Life is weird.
Life is weird. Okay, thank you, Sarah.
So I wanted to talk. Sorry, I wanted to talk about the music because thinking about music, because you asked me to select, an array of music. I don't really take the time to dig for music. 'Cause I just don't. But so most of the music that I listen to, I get from other people in any way, and so I made a selection of tunes that remind me of the people that made me feel at home in a certain period in my life. And it's a lot of different type of tunes. I'm not a DJ, but they really these tunes touch me in a way, and they make me feel at home still in a way. So I thought that was nice. So thanks to the people that gave me those tunes and that put them in my life.
Yes, thank you, Sarah, for this lovely conversation. So we're gonna pop the USB in and hear from us in a second. Woo!
Difficulties, so this isn't necessarily the song that made me feel at home. My USB isn't working, so this is a song by what's your name? Mano. He works at the Play Out. So if you like his tunes, come and have a drink. Do you have any gigs anytime soon? No. Okay, you're just a hobbyist. Okay, so maybe you should try and become his friend, and he can serve you the tunes. But yeah, I did make a nice playlist. Maybe I'll share it online for people who are interested. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Maya and I can meet some other time to do something with that playlist.
Sorry and thank you.
Sorry and thank you. Have a nice Sunday.
Yo. who you cranking with? Go slam. Yo, 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 who you cranking with? Go slam.
Mix.
Yo, who you cranking with? Go slam. And Chuck. Yo, who you cranking with? Go slam. And Damon. Yo, who you cranking with? Quicksilver. Mike Crosby. Yo, who you cranking with?
What's to say we aren't made of stars? Just a small globe in a sea of darkness. Yet we still find the light every day. Made of stars. In a universe with an abundance of possibilities. What's holding you back?
Turn it
Thank you. Bye.